Welcome to this month's webinar on Check Yourself. We have a very special guest tonight from Rotary. Her name is Liz Thiam. She's the global advisor of the Rotary Brand. She focuses on ensuring that our members and staff are using the Rotary's visual identity and Rotary marks correctly. Have we been telling you this? She's been with Rotary since 2008, and so some of you may know her from her other roles. And in this role since 2018, she has served in the Peace Corps in West Africa, and I believe that's where she met her husband.
Yeah.
She speaks French and enjoys home decor. She's a Wisconsin native and has lived outside of Chicago with her husband and her two children.
Yeah.
And tonight we're going to do something a little different. I'm sure you've seen it in other webinars, but we'll take Q&A during the session. So look at the Q&A button if you have a question. But at the end, if we have time, we'll answer it. But then we're going to send you to breakout rooms. So if you have further questions, we can go over those as well. The other two breakouts will be about our EPIC Award and one about general PI questions. I want you all to notice or hover your cursor over the bottom of your screen. About in the middle, there is looks like several documents and it says resources. I want you to click on that right now and look at all the resources that Sean Patty has loaded up for you. Don't spend a lot of time there, but I wanted you to find it before we got started. So without further ado, Liz, thank you for coming.
Thanks, Billy. Thanks for the really nice introduction. I'm going to share my screen here. Thanks to everybody for your time this evening. It's good to be back in zones 33 and 34. This was my home when I was your annual giving officer several moons ago. But today I want to chat with you about the current role that I hold, which is Rotary's Global Brand Advisor. And we're going to start with some basics to get you warmed up, and then we'll go through some examples and best practices. So about 11 years ago, Rotary International rebranded. We used to have a round 2-color logo, and we also had dozens and dozens of other logos for each and every one of our programs. We engaged with an agency at the time and did some worldwide testing to realize that we needed to be more aligned and more current with our visual branding. So at that time, 11 years ago, we rebranded and we went from the 2-color round logo to the master brand signature, which you see here on the screen in the top left. This is Rotary's official logo. We also have another official logo, and that is the Master Brand Signature Simplified. It's 2 versions of the same logo. You'll see things from RI in Evanston or our global offices use the simplified logo, but as members of Rotary and Rotary clubs and districts, you have the option to use either version when you're using these to make your club and district logos, which we'll talk about in a moment. In addition to our official logos, we have a secondary logo, and this is the Mark of Excellence. This is similar to what our previous logo looked like, except now it's only 1 color. The white part you see there is actually supposed to be transparent. And this is used either in like a secondary position. So you may see something that's branded with our master brand, and then there's an accompanying Mark of Excellence. Or you see this sometimes on road signs that are round, or women's earrings, or earrings in general, right, that are round. Social media profiles for clubs is also an appropriate place for the Mark of Excellence because it's round. But I just want to reiterate the point that we went from a 2-color round logo to the master brand signature, which is both the word Rotary, that's a very special stylized font, plus the wheel together. And those 2 things shouldn't be separated. They are one logo that remains together. Everything that I'm going to talk about here tonight is found over in our brand center. This is an amazing micro website that hosts anything that you would need to know or have access to regarding the Rotary brand. And if you take home any message tonight, it's that I want you and your clubs to be using the brand center when we talk about our brand, and do not go to Google and put in Rotary logo and choose from the options there. I wish I could control Google, but I can't. And there's some madness over there when it comes to our logos. So please, please, please always be using the brand center, and that's always going to give you the correct logos to use. So when we rebranded, one of the smartest things I think we did at that time was took the opportunity to leverage this new brand and add the club name to it. And so each and every Rotary club around the world has a consistent and correct club logo to use. In many ways, this is like a franchise, right? This is what franchisees would do to leverage that corporate master brand and then include their own unique identity. So previous to the rebranding exercise, we had, 34,000+ clubs with their own unique kind of homemade logo that maybe did or didn't incorporate some version of the Rotary logo in it. And all that did was dilute our brand. All that did was confuse folks who aren't familiar with Rotary about what this organization is, because one town would have one logo, another town would have another logo, and it wasn't doing us any favors. So I really love that this is such a great solution to still tap into that kind of corporate level or international level branding, and then adding your own club name or district number to the logo to get the logo that identifies your club. So why is it important that we do this correctly? So tonight I'll talk about the how and the why, right? So why is, like with many things in Rotary, there is actually an RI code of policies that is established and managed by the RI directors. And when it comes to the trademark, we work in concert with our intellectual property department, Rotary International, and the board of directors, and they have determined together what protects our intellectual property and then how our members have access to that. So both the name and the logos are Rotary International's, but they can be used by the clubs if the clubs add their name in there as their identifier. Another huge reason that we want clubs to be using their club logos in a consistent and correct fashion is so that the clubs are receiving the credit and the recognition that they're due for the excellent work that's happening in their communities. It's essential that projects that are executed at the club or district, programs, sponsorships that happen with the club, it's essential that the correct logo is used to tie that work together so that it's clear to both the audience and to the members of Rotary who's actually involved with that project. We'll talk a bit towards the end of the presentation about projects again, but I just want you to keep that in mind, that the credit and recognition lies with the clubs when the clubs tie their name to the Rotary logo. And then number 3, we've talked about this a bit, but this is our way to tell that global consistent Rotary story when all clubs have adopted this branding. So here's some things to keep in mind as we go forward. And these are things that unfortunately we're still seeing, around the Rotary world. I empower you to be an advocate, to represent Rotary, and to say we need to be doing things correctly. Sometimes folks always kind of look for well, who's going to let them know? And I'm letting you know that you're that person. You obviously have support from your district and your zone and from Rotary International, but we should all be champions of our brand because we are members of Rotary. So things to keep in mind is to never obscure the logo or manipulate it or turn the wheel into a tire or the number 0. We also don't want to add the logo to like a larger graphic that's happening. We sometimes see clubs wanting to, again, like put their own unique stamp on their logo. But really what that does is just creates 34,000 different club logos again, right? So if you're seeing things like this that look really close but not quite, again, not allowed. And we've talked about how 11 years ago we rebranded. So here's some examples of what that old logo looks like and how folks would use them. So take a moment to look at what your club and district is doing and do an audit of sorts, right? Of all the digital spaces or even printed spaces where that old wheel is still appearing, and make a plan. Make a plan to update those items. So here's an example where I just went over to Google and I Googled Rotary Club logos, and these are things that I found. This tells a convoluted and confusing story to folks who aren't familiar with Rotary. And really at the end of the day, the brand and any brand and logo, the goal of that is to quickly, succinctly tell the story and identify who you are, and then make somebody feel something about it, right? And so this is not promise, following up on our brand promise to do that thing. This is working against us as we go forward using the logos. Here's examples of how to do it correctly, right? So adding the club name, if it's a Rotaract club or an Interact club, they have their Rotaract and Interact logos. And here's examples then of when clubs would, for example, host an event. So the Taste of Evanston happens, and the club here in Evanston is one of the sponsors or one of the hosts of the event. So we use what we call a lockup. It's kind of internal jargon. You don't need to know that, but essentially it just means that you're locking up, you're bringing together either the name of the event that you're hosting or the sponsor that you're working with, or the project logo that you've developed for this annual project that you might work on. And then below are some more examples of district, club, and zone logos. All right, so now we're going to shift gears a little bit and move from logos to the Rotary name. Both of these things are essential pieces of information for you to have as leaders in Rotary, and they are protected and executed nearly the same way. So this is an excerpt from the Code of Policy, like I mentioned at the start of the conversation. The marks are owned by Rotary International and used by the clubs and the districts under the guidance of the board, which basically says that the guidance is saying that you must add the club or the district name to the logo to be able to use it. So global ownership remains with RI for the use of the name. So that means, like, if you're doing a project and you go to apply for a trademark and you have Rotary in the name, we'll probably reach out to you and ask you to withdraw that trademark because Rotary because Rotary owns the trademark. And then really where I want to talk about it, where we see this quite a bit happening, is naming of events and naming of third-party things in your community. So this example we found online, they were calling themselves the Rotary Family Picnic. Rotary International was not hosting this event, which is what is insinuated when the Rotary name is used alone without an identifier. So instead of Rotary Family Picnic, here's another one we found where the club logo is listed, and they've renamed this the Annual Family Picnic. It could also be the Rotary Club of Adena Family Picnic. As long as the name of the club is formally incorporated into the title of your event, you're good. So we see things like a Rotary run, a 5K Rotary run, that would insinuate that Rotary International is hosting that Rotary run. So it should be renamed to Rotary Club of XYZ run or marathon or whatever you want to call it. We also have instances where individual Rotarians will get together around a cause or something that brings them together. And unfortunately, they often think that because they're members of Rotary, that they can use the Rotary name at large to name whatever organization they're starting. This is not allowed. Again, projects and groups and organizations would have to bear the name of the club, or they just don't use the Rotary name at all. So this is an actual group that exists. They had named themselves Rotarian Malaria Partners, and I worked with them to rename their group Malaria Partners International. And they're a wonderful, powerful advocacy group for malaria prevention. They went on to receive the first Programs of Scale Award from Rotary International. And that wouldn't have been possible with their previous name because it wasn't aligned with our guidance. So use of that word, Rotary, Rotarians, etc., at large isn't permitted. And here's the third example that we often see, not always a hospital, but usually like a Rotary arena, a Rotary school, a Rotary stadium. And these are things where we know that the Rotary Club obviously is involved and has donated probably money or donated in-kind gifts or something like that to get this third-party entity off the floor. And they unwittingly gave the Rotary name away to this organization without permission from Rotary International. Because the hospital is not a direct project of the club isn't managing it, insuring it, responsible for it, then the name of the club cannot even be given to the hospital. So instead, the solution is to put signage up at a hospital. Let's say we'll call this the Hernando Community Hospital. We put signage up at the hospital that shows the community that the Rotary clubs of Hernando County were the donors to the project to make the hospital happen. So, and I think there's something to be said here too, that just giving the Rotary name to something doesn't always tell your community the story of what your Rotary club did. Because if you're not familiar with Rotary, then they're not sure what that even means, right? And so what's a Rotary pavilion? I don't know, because I don't know what Rotary is, right? But if there's a nice sign outside that has your club logo on it that says the Rotary Club of XYZ, cares about our environment or cares about community connecting or something like that, right? And they've donated to this project. You can put a QR code there too, right? Learn more about us, join us, come see what we do. These are opportunities to really, really tell your story and engage with the community while still absolutely being that donor and that person or that group that helped get this project off the ground. And then we're going to this last section, switching gears a little bit to talk about merchandise and licensing. In my role, we often see folks, well, in your role too, right? You go to an event and you see folks wearing some Rotary things, like maybe with I don't know, a purple Rotary wheel or I don't know, belt buckles with old Rotary logos on them or something like that. More often than not, these items were purchased from a non-licensed vendor. Because folks don't know. I mean, all of these are just innocent, innocent things that happen. People have the best of intentions, but they just don't know that they should be purchasing items through licensed vendors. Or if that's not able to happen, you can still use your own vendor and just have that vendor reach out to us to apply for a one-time exception to produce the item you're looking to purchase. We make it easy, we make it free for that to happen as well. But this way, of course, it protects the trademark if you're purchasing things from an officially licensed vendor. And it also ensures that the money that your club is spending to receive these items is produced correctly. So you're not showing up at an event with purple Rotary logos on. So please just keep those things in mind as you go forward. And here's some resources for you as you kind of ingest a lot of that information that I just gave. Again, that brand center is going to be your one-stop shop for things related to accessing and using the brand. We do have a suite of public image courses over in the Learning Center. And these are courses that I would encourage you to familiarize yourself with and to absolutely have anybody who is working in the public image realm in the clubs and districts, they should be taking those courses as well. Again, all of this is foundational and in the RI Code of Policies, and your district teams are also huge resources to you. So I think with that, we have a few minutes of Q&A that I am happy.
Liz, I wanted to bring up something that was mentioned, that there's still clubs who are using the master brand for their club logo. And it was mentioned that RI is approving them. And I come across this a lot where I see, I will call a club or a district and help coach them on how they can, update their logo to meet the brand standards. And they say, well, oh, RI approved it. Can you speak to the approval process, if there is one or not?
Sure, that's so interesting. We do not have a formal approval process in place, nor should there really be, because there's only one way to do it, and that's in the brand center. I mean, you just add your name to the logo in the template in the brand center, and if you do it, it's correct. Nobody needs to double check that. So if they're creating club logos that are not that, I have never met anybody at RI that has approved that, nor do we have the authority to do something like that. There is this very obscure process where you can apply to the board of directors to use the Rotary name, something, but that is not what we're talking about here. So no, I would venture to say that maybe decades ago, they chatted with somebody potentially somewhere or at some level. Also, what happens too is sometimes folks think that the directors or other leaders might be Rotary staff, because sometimes our leaders do say, yeah, that looks great, right? And they're moving a million miles a minute. They're not there to necessarily guide you to the brand center to use the logos correctly, right? So I'm not sure where the communication broke down, but no, nobody would be approving logos at RI.
Thanks, Liz. I appreciate that. And we also get the misnomer of the Rotary police. And I always like to correct people and say we're branding coaches. We're just here to help. We're not here to tell you what's right or wrong. Only these are some tips that you can do to come up to the brand compliance standards.
Right.
Excellent. Can you maybe elaborate a little more, since we have a couple more minutes before the next portion, on the recent changes with the pins and the use of the logo on pins?
Oh, sure. Okay. So when we did rebrand 11 years ago, and I was in a different role. So my understanding was at that time, there was a type of, I don't know if you'd consider it a concession or just a holdover that happened that said that our licensed vendors could still produce that old logo for the official member pin. My gut tells me that it was just a type of concession that was made at the time, so people weren't really having a hard time with, having to rebrand everything. Then for several years, I don't think there was enough action probably taken to say, oh, we should check back in with that because we have been using this new logo now for over a decade, right? So we did that then recently, and now the licensed vendors should no longer be producing or selling that old wheel. I think it's as of like 1 November or something like that. It's coming up soon. That's not to say that you cannot wear your pin, that you were pinned when you joined RI, and if it's the old wheel, that's fine. We're not talking about really, erasing history. That's not what the conversation's about at all. But member pins will now be available from our vendors with the updated branding.
Excellent, thank you. I have a question from Jim. He said, can a district put the district and number above Rotary and the location, for example, the state, USA, below Rotary for its brand?
Sure. So technically, no. So all of the districts have to be just the word district and the 4 digits that sit below the master brand. That is your official district logo. However, there are opportunities where it is appropriate. Let's say you're doing a fundraiser in your community and it is a district-wide fundraiser. It's okay then to use something we call the geographic identifiers, which is something we introduced maybe about 2 years ago. We heard you when you said District 5000 doesn't mean anything to the people in my community. So we said, okay, great. While you still must retain your official district logo for your official district, business, it could be appropriate in some instances to use the Rotary logo and then say like Clubs of Hawaii, which is actually what District 5000 is, because you're defining the area and all the clubs within the area in that geographic identifier. So I'm not saying that that supersedes the district logo, but it could be used. And I would just really encourage you to look in the brand center and read all the criteria. And if you meet all the criteria for using the geographic identifier, I encourage you to use that. It's
Excellent.
actually a really great way to list like potentially dozens of clubs that are like hosting a 5K or something like that. It's an easier way to brand yourself rather than listing out all 50 clubs that are involved with the project.
But I understand it should also have a time frame attached to it so that
Yes.
you're not using that logo indefinitely. It's for that specific event.
Definitely. There is definitely some criteria that you have to meet in order to use it. Yes. Thank you, Susan. Yep.
I think we have time for one more question. And I also see this question raised a lot. If a club or building, for example, already has the Rotary name on it and it's been there maybe engraved in a large sign that's very expensive or even on a building, and it's a little bit more difficult than just updating t-shirts, what do you suggest that club or district do?
Sure. So first of all, your first step is probably just to reach out to me at brand@rotary.org, and you and I can go through the details of what this is, who's involved, what it would take to change, what the legal names are behind it. Like there's a lot of things we can chat about. So that's brand@rotary.org, and I can kind of help you through this. My message here tonight is to more be like in that preventative area. So if you're hearing that this is happening, or if you're planning to do something like that yourself, like I want you to be armed with that information that is not the way to go forward with the naming. There are instances where these things come to the IP department, our legal department. It'll hit their radars that there's infringement happening. And so I will be that person that would work with the clubs and districts to get them to update and to change official naming that was unfortunately misnamed, at the time. So even if it's decades old, they still have to align. And I will note too that guidance is not new. That's not something that happened when we rebranded. That has been in the RI Code of Policies for decades and decades and decades. It's just not known that well. So. That's why I'm
Thank you,
here.
Liz.
Yeah.
And I want to encourage everyone, as Liz mentioned, that, you really are all brand champions on this call. Empower yourselves. If you see the improper use of the Rotary logo, if you see that old blue and gold wheel, or someone not using the logo to its full integrity by putting it as a wheel or the letter O or a zero in a word, feel free to make the comment yourself to that club. If you don't feel comfortable, use your district public image chairs to address that, or contact anyone here, any of the panelists here tonight, your Zone 33, 34 PI coordinators. We're here to help. Liz is an amazing resource. We use her all the time, but we can reach out and contact that club directly. And a lot of times it's just because we don't know. We don't have eyes on the thousands of clubs across our zones, but you do. You know the clubs next to you. So if you see that use of the logo not being used properly, please let us know, call it to our attention, and we'd be more than happy to help coach them. But you are our brand ambassadors as well. So let's put a little bit of your knowledge that you learned from Liz here tonight. And Liz, thank you again for being here. We always love having you participate in our events.
My pleasure.
Put some of that knowledge to the test. I'm going to ask Sean backstage to put a poll up. And when you see what's up, when you see the image on the screen, this is a logo game. I want you to say correct or incorrect. So just check the box there. You see on your screen, there's a logo there, the first example, and I'll give you a few seconds to answer that. Is that correct or incorrect? I can't see the tallies coming through. I'm hoping that most people are not checking correct. And I think the reason to most of us is probably obvious by now, is Liz showed some examples of this old blue and gold logo that was retired 11 years ago. And I always steal Marshall Butler's joke that if it was a grade schooler, this logo, our new logo, would now be in 6th grade. So it's been retired for a while. So we want to make sure we're getting rid of that. If we see it on any of your social media channels, any of your materials that you're passing out to Rotarians and non-Rotarians, we want to make sure we get that updated. So let's move on to the next one. Hopefully we all pass that. Okay, so on number 2, if you answered correct, which it looks like 90% of our participants answered this correctly, so I'm happy to see that. That is the new mark of excellence. And next to it, you'll see the master brand, the Rotary master brand, and the signature line has zones 33, 34, because that's actually what our zone uses in our promotional materials, on our social media channels, on our email campaigns. So we use that logo. As Liz mentioned, is our secondary logo. So we want you to be using your club or district logo as your primary logo on all of your materials, and that mark of excellence, again, the updated one in your materials. So hopefully we'll all use that correctly moving forward. Now, the third example is a little bit tricky, maybe a little trickier, and this is the Rotary Club of Portsmouth, and I like what they did by using the right brand, but what they did wrong is they manipulated that logo. So they downloaded the master brand, but then they plucked the wheel out of there and put it on top of Rotary, and then they just inserted their own font for their club. So we need to move that Rotary back, go right to the brand center and just type in Club of Portsmouth, and it will download correctly. So that example number 3 is not correct. It should be downloaded with the Portsmouth Club of Portsmouth, or however they title or call their name most commonly in the signature line. So happy to see that the majority got that right as well. The fourth example, so this is a Facebook profile page. So if I went to the Rotary Club of Charlevoix, perhaps, I would see this when I first come to the page. So there's a few things that are going on with this one we want to talk about really quickly. And thank you for those who answered incorrect. That is the old mark of excellence. So yes, it's okay to use a mark of excellence as the profile picture, as Liz mentioned, in that round space there, but do not use the old blue and gold logo. Make sure you're updating it. The second thing I want to point out, and I love it when clubs use their club logo in the cover image, so it really makes it more impactful. Use those people of action photos, not just a logo in the cover photo, but more importantly, the theme should not, the presidential theme, which this year it's the magic of Rotary, it should not be used in external facing publications or channels. So that's an internal message that we carry with our internal Rotarian audience for this year. When we're projecting messages out to the general public, who might not necessarily know about Rotary, we don't want to promote the presidential theme. So a good replacement for that magic of Rotary in the cover image there would be a really nice people of action shot. And you can download those images from the Brand Center or use images from your club. And there's guidelines on how to take really good people of action photos in the Brand Center as well. And then the last example is a Rotary event. So they have rebranded their event, the Craft Beer Festival, through the Rotary Club of Cary Grove correctly. They have their event logo in a lockup on the right next to their club logo. So instead of maybe using the mark of excellence as the barley or something else in the wheel, they put their logo in the lockup format, which is correct. So when you're hosting an event or naming your partners, please remember to go to that lockup template and utilize it to its fullest. So thanks everyone for participating in the poll. I know there's a lot of incorrect logos out there, as Liz mentioned. So just a reminder again, not to use Google to find the Rotary logo. Always go to the Brand Center and ask us. We're more than willing to help. And I'm going to share a few resources that will be helpful for you along the way as well. That top one up there is the Brand Design Review. And that's a really cool new tool that we've launched on the Zones 33-34 PI website. Elevate Rotary Zones 33-34.org. If you go to the Brand Design Review template, it's right there on the homepage. You can upload your graphic there. So if you have a flyer or a graphic for a shirt or a billboard or a sign or you just downloaded your logo and you want to see if it's correct, you can upload it to that Brand Design Review at Elevate Rotary and we'll review it for you. Our team is very responsive. We'll typically get back to you the same day, if not within a couple of days, and let you know, hey, this looks great, way to go. Or we'll say, here are some opportunities for you to improve it so that it's more in line with Rotary's brand guidelines. We also have our PI Matters blog, and we release information on this fairly frequently on various topics that you learn about, everything from branding to how to put together a public image plan and a content calendar to other resources that are available to you. And we also have a webinar archive. If you haven't been there, it has a slew of webinar recordings that we've done, just like this one will be posted within the next few days in our webinar archive. So it's a really great resource, especially if you're a new public image chair or new to your public image committee and you want to learn about specific topics. It has everything from using LinkedIn to Canva to AI and many other topics that you can peruse and check out those webinars. And then we'll have our Zone 33-34 events there. So you can subscribe to our calendar and not just get subscribed to the PI events, but you can get subscribed to all of the Zone 33 events as well, and they will automatically feed into your calendar. I want to bring this up because we run into this a lot. We are trying to communicate, and when I say we, it's our team of panelists here tonight, our public image coordinator team are trying to get messages out to the right people in the club. So we need to know who they are. So I want to ask you right now, do you know who your public image chair is in your club? If you're not the public image chair, do you know who it is? And are they listed in My Rotary? Because we pull our contacts from My Rotary, and if we don't have the right leaders in those leadership roles identified in My Rotary, then we're not communicating to the right people. So if you need help getting them entered into My Rotary, please let me know, but we want to make sure we're communicating with the right people.
And if you use, can I stop just, if you use ChatGPT and you put your club public image person in your club as a club officer, it flows up to my Rotary, so don't panic. It's up there.
It does sync, yes. Thank you, Billy. So get those CPICs entered into DACDB as well, whatever platform you use. But my Rotary is definitely the end-all platform where all of the master database is stored. So make sure we know who we're communicating with. And that's important because we hand out a really prestigious award towards the end of the Rotary year, and we rebranded it this year called the EPIC Award. It was the Public Image Citation, but Zones 3334 gives out the EPIC Award to clubs who participate in monthly tasks. So each month, your club is asked to participate in a task. In July, the task was to do an audit. As Liz mentioned, it's really good every year to go through and audit all of your channels. Look at your website, your social media channels, your newsletter templates, your brochures, your business cards, your email signatures. Look at all of that information. Do an audit, make sure you're using the right logos and you're consistent across the board. And it's a really quick form that you can fill out online for that July task. The August task is to put together a public image plan. And then in September, we ask you to do a content calendar. These are all foundational tasks. These are important to having a successful year. They will set you up for success. And it's been proven. We've been asking clubs to participate in these tasks for several years. And it's shown that clubs who are active in these award criteria and these tasks produce better results at the end. And it's not just in public image. Having a powerful public image team and doing things correctly can really enhance the support of your programs, your fundraisers, your events. It can tie sponsors to you, and it can absolutely help you recruit and retain your members by participating in these strong public image efforts. So if you want to earn this award and at the highest level, you have to complete these 3 tasks by October 31st. So go to elevaterotaryzones3334.org and get started on those today. We do have just recently opened the October task, which is to tell us about your World Polio Day event. So you'll find the task on our website, and you can find a breakdown of all of the tasks for the year, when they open, when they're due, and what's required. So any questions, let us know. We're going to go into breakout rooms now. There's actually a breakout room for the EPIC Award. So if you're struggling with any of those tasks and you need help, I encourage you to hop on into that breakout room, and you can move between breakouts. So if you want to go into EPIC and ask a question and then pop into the Rotary Brand breakout room 3 with Liz, then you're more than welcome to do that. But we have the EPIC Award questions. We'll go to breakout room 1. Questions, just any general questions that you want to ask our team, public image related or maybe a little beyond, can go into breakout room 2. And then if you have any questions for Liz, I know we had a few left over in the Q&A section. We'll get to those and your questions in breakout room 3. Any district public image chairs on the call, I ask you to remain on this call after the breakouts end. So if you're district public image chair or district governor and you're on the call, you're welcome to join us too. Please remain on the call after the breakout rooms close and come back to the main room. So at this time, we will open up the breakout rooms and ask you to pick one to join.